year. Quite a year.
Where the echo come from?
I don't know. It's
I don't know.
strange. I like it.
Look at the grouse. Meow. Meow.
Clearly. Hold on. So, we'll figure it out. We'll solve it in a second if we can. I'm thinking. So overall, it has been quite the year, Johnny Million. It has been quite the year. Can you say something for me so I know if I'm hearing you? No, I don't hear you. See, that's the thing. There you go. How about this? I send this out. There you go. And
quite the year. There was that thing with the stuff, and then that guy with the teeth.
Great, everyone can hear you but me. I'm solving it. We're good.
You can't hear me? Oh, I cannot. I can. Oh, now I got the echo.
Nope, I got it. Hold on 1 second. We're all good. We're all good. It's fine. Hi. See?
Good.
Hi. See? Solved it. Hi. It's I feel like I've been repeating myself all year, so it's kind of a good intro. I did that on purpose, Johnny Million. It was no
every
accident.
800 milliseconds you repeat yourself.
That's right. It's like the old George Carlin line. I'm a man ahead of my time. The problem is I'm only about 5 minutes ahead. And it doesn't give me time to get ahead of anybody else, really. We're going to be talking to our dear friend Philip Bittner, who is, I think, going to be on the red carpet at Cannes this time next year. If our plan continues to work. We have
wearing his fake hat.
Our Mr. What are you wearing? A real hat?
I'm going to talk to him about this hat.
I'm the one wearing nature's hat right now. Nature's hoodie. At this point, honest to God, I was like, I wonder what I would look like in a hoodie. Oh, I look like this. Over the last year, there has been quite a lot of talk in these parts on this particular show about a belief I have had that has grown over time from I think the dare I say the nest of innocence, the egg of naivete, to a full-grown stork of I don't know. I'm looking for the analogy, and it's just dying on the highway. I was trying. You know what? It was stuck in my head. Was that the spoon-billed stork or whatever? You know, the big, giant, weird-looking, like alien-looking stork that everybody takes pictures of with the huge bill that's like human size. And I literally that image came into my head like a Mid-Journey mismatch, and I panicked for a moment because it's the only thing that scares me.
Good. I'm glad you panicked, and it didn't feel like home.
So, I've been saying a couple of things over the last year. One, that it is my personal belief that we have been involved as the United States in in a crisscross between our, I guess, jingoistic, hyper-patriotic naivete on one side of the spectrum, and our isolationist, all we do is bad stuff in the world, other side of the fringes of the conversation about politics in this country. We have marched headlong into probably the biggest geopolitical rope-a-dope that humankind has seen since the Trojan horse. And specifically, I am talking about in the early 90s, when the fall of the USSR happened, and everybody was like, oh, good, the Cold War is over. And we started acting towards Russia with an absolute, nearly instantaneous naivete. Like, oh, well, that's gone, so you guys are totally different now.
Yeah.
Mistaking a falling internal regime for a similar revolutionary fight that the Americans put on back in the days of the colonies, which is intrinsically different. When you are fighting to expel, as our dear friends in Ukraine know quite well right now, when you are fighting,
and as I did this morning.
I don't need to know that. I don't.
I was fighting to expel.
I don't believe you. I think it all happened whether out of your control. But we'll talk about that in the after show, as we do during the therapy session of HAL SPARKS radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's not a good time to remind people to support the show through Patreon right now, is it?
Right in the middle of my sketch joke.
So in 1991, when the USSR fell, the attitude towards the United States and our Western allies was largely, okay, the Soviet Union is done. That's who we were fighting with. We were not fighting with the Russian people or any of their personalities or anything. Just the ideology fight had been going on for a long time, and it's over now. And so we jumped right into American artists were performing over there. You and I watched the Moscow Music Peace Festival.
Yeah, they're still waiting for their pizzas.
Yeah, they're still waiting for their pizzas. If you haven't seen Ozzy's analogies about the USSR versus the West,
I just brought up an inside joke that Hal and I have had since we were 17 years old.
That's absolutely true. So, wonderful, a wonderful period. But at the same time, when you look at who was coming up in that system, it is abundantly clear that not everyone was happy about the collapse of that whole big USSR thing.
No.
And set about to right that wrong, however long it would take them. And the primary, like the prime mover in this group of people was Vladimir Putin himself, who has said that the fall of the Soviet Union is the biggest tragedy in the history of his country and the history of the world. And right about that time, there was a teetering shift where the leader of China at the time said, hide your strength and bide your time. The idea being that we will become, we'll let everybody build stuff here. We'll just absorb the world's goods. In effect, a way of probably the closest thing to a successful version of Marx's plan, which is to build you can only build socialism on the back of capitalism. Again, it's such a weird aspect of Marx's philosophy that I find goofy beyond measure, which is, it's the Marxism, like socialism and communism only can work once capitalism creates everything, which is like saying the key to living a truly pure vegan lifestyle is to get as big as Arnold Schwarzenegger, eating nothing but beef and calves livers, and then one day just decide to call yourself a vegan. It's very odd. It's an intrinsic aspect of the philosophy that I just find flawed, let's say. So, right about that time, and yes, I did do a hair flip, Johnny Million. You just saw it on camera at infotainmentwars.com. And it's hard not to. And it's interesting that the timing of both of these things was happening very close together. The fall of the USSR and the concern on from the Chinese part that they were next, that the CCP would fall equally because it was equally incompetent, equally disinterested in the health and welfare of its own people, and reliant on the Western world to even exist in the first place. And so they set about two kind of divergent messaging standards. One was, welcome all comers. We're part of the global community. We're your business partner. That was the Chinese version of it. And the Russians were, we're going to have to set snares so that if anybody tries to get out from under our influence, they face death. Now,
cool.
Both are true, by the way. Both are the same argument. They're just verbalized differently, because ultimately what China's has been trying to do over the last 15 years especially is, you build everything here so you can't mess with us. If you mess with us, we will, we'll stop, I don't know, letting your goods leave the country. Whatever they never really could express what would happen, because they knew the health and well-being of their people was tied so intimately with the economies of the West that they couldn't really out and out say it. But it was a lot of tug and pull, like, we're going to make this difficult for you. And in the margins on on trillions of dollars of trade, margins can mean a drop in your nation's or a rise in your nation's unemployment by a point or two. And we know, in this country that after things like 2008 or the Great Depression, that if unemployment goes up, there's literally a statistical number, and I'm blitzing on it right now, that ties the number of suicides to a percentage rise in unemployment. That you can literally, like, it's a balanced part of the populace overall. Yeah, it is. You can
capitalism killing people.
Well, I wouldn't call it capitalism, because without that, it is literally just the inability to provide. Oh, in other countries, like in China,
Where's that? Who did that?
That's not us.
Now it's gone.
It is. That's so weird. See, and I didn't touch anything.
Right? Yeah, I know. Your hair could have.
That's true. It's got Medusa-like properties. So, point being is that it is abundantly clear. That is very strange. It only happens sometimes. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out during the break. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
It's so weird.
Is it Chicago?
Are you by any louder?
chance? Nope. Chicago, are you by any chance throwing switches?
Yeah, we had some stuff go wrong yesterday. We're trying to fix it right now, and of course, nothing's working. So we're on the phone with management right now. We'll figure out what we can make happen.
That's okay. I was just hearing myself back from you guys every so often while you were flipping switches, so I thought it was me. So I was.
I wanted to make sure you knew it wasn't you, because we're trying to fix the problem over here, but it's just like,
that's weird.
No, that's good.
It's not your usual move.
Yes.
60 seconds, guys.
Thank you.
Well, since in my fourth day of streaming, I now can relate to what Hal has been going through in the tiniest of ways. I was joking with him.
Real.
I was joking with him, saying like, "Yeah, you wouldn't understand how difficult this is trying to pull it all together."
My brother, if I could come over and just fix the baseline of it as quickly as possible, like you just need this, and this, and then. It's like an elimination diet. Cut down to everything that doesn't make you feel funky, and then start adding foods back in to see what's messing with you. It's exactly that.
I think I've learned that from you, and like, I have to not be afraid to just like restart my fucking computer.
Yes. Yeah, because sometimes
everything works.
Sometimes it's just its personality. Thank you. It's just your computer just goes, I'm a little confused right now, and I'm freaking out, so I think I'm going to break.
You're locked into the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
All right, so it wasn't me, which is good, which is very strange. I'm glad. What I was saying essentially was that we in our national, maybe it's a mix of the sort of egoism of American exceptionalism on the right and the denial of American exceptionalism on the hyper left. Or, those groups, we're basically in, if you go online, a ping pong match between those two groups of idiots. Mm-hmm. And since they have largely controlled the conversation for the last 30 years, we have missed the fact that other countries have plans on the world, that there is not a singular, imperialistic reflex and hegemonic reflex somehow magically, the minute you take your oath as a U.S. citizen, as an immigrant, if you show up here and you take your oath, suddenly, all of a sudden, you're like, all right, what countries can we take over? Let's do this. Let's start with my old one first. It's not something that's just built in. As a matter of fact, there's a lot more laissez-faire in the American politic than I think people are even aware of. And if you don't believe me, go to a sports stadium or a concert these days. And it's really, because of COVID, I think, even more stark than it has ever been. But in the process, you've got two particularly centralized governments with no diversity of thought within their functioning system. Namely the CCP and the Russian system, where both countries have set a path to either because they believe they've been wronged by history, or they have low self-esteem about their existence in the world, or it's just too much work to produce a lot of stuff that a lot of people want and get power that way. So they've just got to seize everything and kill everybody. And maybe that's a reflex every country goes through, that, obviously when the Germans wag a finger at us, we're like, calm down. And when we wag a finger at somebody else, we have to do it with a recognition that we have a history that we have to make up for. But part of it is moving past that. The whole point is that nobody gets to skip history. And I think we're all finding out right now. I saw a shirt the other day where somebody was wearing that said, I'm tired of living through once in a lifetime events, And I'm sorry, but you can't. Nobody gets to skip history. And part of and the
I
definition.
wanna.
Nope. The definition of your country, the definition of your philosophy is, is not this idea that you have no regrets, but that you recognize your failures, regret them, so that you never do them again. That if
You learn from them.
right, exactly. That's why I'm a big fan of regret. I gotta, regrets. I've had a few, and they genuinely have worth. There's a problem though when your only regrets are, I should have killed that guy when I had the chance, which right now in the world of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, there's a lot of that going around. Like, that is the primary gripe.
Yeah.
And in many ways, thank God, it's too late. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of Russia's attack on Ukraine. And during, the last couple of days on my live stream and on the morning show, which I do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on twitch.tv/HalSparks. And Johnny Million's got a new Twitch channel, and we're going to raid him and do all kinds of things.
It's going to be crazy. Hal's going to be on the live stream, and we're going to...
Yeah, it's going to be a show. And then your audio is going to fail, and I'm just going to smile.
You're going to giggle.
Scramble and pull plugs and freak out and try to keep your thought aligned while craziness happens. But that we've been looking at, the lead up to the few days right before this, and the conversation that has been had multiple times, in the month before, where Biden and everybody, Blinken, all those folks, they were talking directly to Lavrov and all those guys and hearing what the Russians were saying versus what the Russians were doing. And there was if you look back at the videos of their spokespeople, their ambassador, when he was on Face the Nation, literally the day before they moved their troops into the already occupied areas to start the big roll past that, he directly, there is no invasion and there is no plan for an invasion. Now, on the one hand, that's almost true, because they had a plan, but it sucked. It was, you could say there was no plan because they thought they could do it easily. And, well, who needs a plan? We'll just roll in and do this. Biden's weak. The NATO alliance has been, lessened, and everybody's scattered, and Brexit, and we teed up all the parts as best we could, and we really don't have much time. We got to do this. Our demographic and lack of technological advancement calls for us to seize the lands of other people and live off their backs, a form of war slavery, which is effectively the business that Russia is in now. If you don't believe me, ask the Chechens or the Georgians or the Dagestanians or anybody who's in a former Soviet republic that has declared its independence and has been living independent ever since. And even to some degree sections of Syria. And by the way, if you don't believe it, ask our soldiers who gave up a base during the Trump administration that the Russians took over. So we got to build, the U.S. taxpayer built the biggest Russian base in Syria. That's what they do now. They are. This is a war of enslavement. We will either take your people and use them as broodmares in the case of the women and children, and we will kill your men or force them to fight for us to continue this going forward in a very Genghis Khan methodology. Or we will just obliterate all of you and take your land and use the fact that you cultivated over years and created farms and all this kind of stuff, and just steal your tractors, start farming on your land, and with no memory of who set it up. A form of it's like working your way into someone's will and then murdering them. That's the softest version of what Russia has been trying to do in Ukraine.
Most of the true crime stories that I listen to are that. People working their way into wills and then becoming the caretaker.
Yes, and on a side note, because you're great at those, Johnny Million, may I say that a lot of those things seem a lot more work than just making that money.
Yeah, right?
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? And all the danger
work at
involved in
Target.
it. Yeah, well, let's say, I don't know what the number is. what's your number, Johnny Million? 1.5 million, like whatever the insurance number. Once it gets up to a certain point, you're like, oh, I can see that. Yeah, this person's never going to make $1 million. So they're just like
it's
rubbing
probably
their
in that
hands together.
ballpark. Yeah.
Yep. But if you're capable of creating that kind of a plot and actually think you can get away with it, why don't you think you can, I don't know, invent an extra key for the piano? At a certain point, can't you, maybe it's an ego, I don't know, maybe there's an ego window. You know how they say there's an asteroid headed for the Earth right now, by the way, and it's the one that we're going to nudge because we practiced with the other one. I don't want to scare everybody, but it comes by the Earth in 2035. And it's going to either go straight towards the Earth, burn up on reentry, or it's going to bounce off the atmosphere because it comes close. But if there is a 500-yard window that it could pass through in the atmosphere, which is like the perfect insert, which will make it land 35 miles off the coast of Santa Monica and create a tsunami in less than a minute that will wipe out almost half of Los Angeles, drag it out to sea, raise a giant second wave of all the buildings it tore to pieces and smash those down on the cities. It's a very small chance. But I think it's worth the mission to kind of flick that thing out of the way. You know what I mean? Like, that's that alone would makes all of NASA's expenditures forever worth it. Right? I had that conversation with my son last week when he had a teacher who was going off about like, why are we spending money on space when we could? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if we can divert the one asteroid that would kill us all, it pays for itself. Yeah. Because there is no economy if we're all cinders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's never mind the ARC project where we can get off this log. So, if we ever treat it that terribly where it's like, okay, enough of you guys, which it very well may, because it snowed in Vegas this week, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. So, where were we? Oh, yes, the rope-a-dope. So, it has become abundantly clear that at least under Vladimir Putin in Russia, the idea was play nice, but hide the knife. And ultimately, whether Deng Xiaoping, that was his plan or not, or whether he even thought it was viable, it was definitely part of the philosophy that was coming out of the CCP in the 80s and 90s, especially into the 2000s. Once Xi Jinping got in, Xi Jinping is largely the Vladimir Putin of China.
Okay.
He talks about Taiwan the way, Putin talks about Ukraine. The difference is Ukraine at one point was part of the USSR. It was still its own country. They just decided to make it a state, and then it went back to being its own country. Taiwan, for the record, and I don't know why people aren't aware of this, is not now and has never been under the CCP as a governance. It has never, ever been under the Chinese government as it stands. Ever. The Nationalist Party fled to Taiwan and started their own government there specifically. The one China policy is about ethnicity largely for the West, because in a racially homogenous country, that's how the West tends to think about countries like that, because that's how they think of themselves. And increasingly, China thinks of itself as not a Chinese country, but a Han Chinese country. In the same way that, you and I couldn't make a distinction between Germans and and Bavarian Germans and Austro-Germans and whatever, but the Germans sure did in the late 30s. They are making that distinction right now. And I think the world is finally waking up to this. We got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to see if I can play this audio without it killing us all, of Bill Browder talking about why the West has slow-walked our support for Ukraine as far as weapons. And it's partly because our empathy is weaponized against us. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million.
That's me.
Mm-hmm. No.
Everybody in the West has been tiptoeing around this.
Can you hear that? Is it too quiet? Hold on.
Everybody in the West has been tiptoeing around.
For me, you sound okay.
This whole
Hey,
concept.
gents.
Okay.
Hey?
Yes?
Just letting you know, we're going to flip another switch. Let us know if you hear an echo on the air, and if not, we'll flip that switch back, okay?
You got it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Trying to put out this fire with no fire extinguisher, just a little watering can.
With gasoline. As the
Told Paul that's why it looked like it was getting bigger.
As the Davids and the Bowies.
This is definitely getting bigger.
Okay. And then sounds good, audio's good. And then I just wanted to make sure, Johnny, that you can hear this.
Of escalation. We somehow think that if
okay, and it's a little quiet because it's roomy, but there's nothing.
Yeah, that's the only thing is that it's roomy, but that's okay.
Right. It's roomy and boomy. Roomy.
And Philip is all set for the top of the hour.
Excellent. Why she?
You promised not to wear the hat.
Roomy. Yeah, she was a big girl, sir.
I was hot and I was hungry.
I was hungry. This is true. What? We're degenerates.
The movie
what about that time I found you naked? What about that time I found you naked with that bowl of Jello? This is true.
I was hot.
Hot, and I was hungry.
25 seconds.
25. That's peculiar denomination.
He's working on it. He's got other stuff. He's juggling stuff. Give him an extra 5 seconds of wiggle room. Come on.
Go ahead. Wiggle.
Cross the streams. Sorry, again. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Yes.
Johnny Million and Santos 2024. Okay, but who's the running mate? Well, I think Santos would be the running mate that says president. What? Yeah.
Santos is already calling himself Johnny Million.
Everybody wants to be like Johnny. That's the spirit.
How are Johnny and Hal different?
Height.
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 They're trying to pit us against each other in the world of guitar playing.
Height, hair, and hope. These are the three ways. We have the 3 H's. We gotta have a 4H of it.
That's right. I've only got one of those.
Holes. No, that's not.
I've got holes.
Oh, I know.
How do you know?
Well, if you didn't, you'd be a lot bigger.
I told you I was working on an expulsion. Oh, Devin just sent a note. You guys are back. Oh, we're back. We're on the air.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right.
You can't hear us.
Oh, no, we cannot hear them. But that's okay. Nope. That's a curious aspect. I can hear you though, Johnny. So I know it ain't me. I'm good. All right. Now the question is, I hope they can hear us. But anyways, Bill Browder was on, I think, the BBC, like BBC Radio, Times Radio, who, by the way, has been straight up magic on the Ukraine war, like as fuddy-duddy and British as the Times Radio, is and seems and absolutely just reeks of it. Every time I listen to or see a clip from the Times Radio interviews, it is just Brits keeping calm and carrying on about the most awful things. And well, at this point, a severe fire of that form is something we're going to have to. Now, if you can't see in the frame right now, but both of my legs are on fire. And on the one hand, if you looked at it positively, I could be Nikki Sixx in a video, but I'm not. I'm a man on fire, and we learn to deal. So this is Browder saying something that I have been saying for quite some time about this, like our issues with Ukraine and Russia.
Everybody in the West has been tiptoeing around this whole concept of escalation. We somehow think that if we supply Putin, we supply the Ukrainians with weapons, that's going to escalate Putin. But he's the one escalating. All we're doing is trying to help them defend themselves. And so I wish that the U.S. and the U.K. and the EU would just put aside this worry about upsetting Putin, give the Ukrainians everything that they asked for, and let the Ukrainians get on with their job to finish this off, because they could if they had the appropriate weaponry to do so. Everybody in the
Yes. So there was an article, I believe it was in the Wall Street Journal first, but it is a thought that is carrying across now on the, and I think the 1 year anniversary has brought people to it in a lot of the ways that many people reflected on the Iraq War the year after 9/11, 2 years in, where people were like, maybe, just maybe, we had we were wrong in our perception and our attitudes towards this whole thing, and we let ourselves get carried away. The opposite is true now. I think the reaction to being misled by the Bush administration and being, for those that were, I don't think anybody here was, and I don't think anybody listening to the sound of my voice bought any of it at all. Like we were, I found it absurd from the jump that we were going into Iraq, but the reaction from some people was out of fear after 9/11 that anything is justified, that, that's it. For everybody always asks what happened to Dennis Miller. That's what happened to Dennis Miller. 91, Dennis Miller was I think he put out Black and White, one of the most liberal stand-up specials you'll hear in a long time. Very, pro-choice, all kinds of, jokes in there. Obviously, not politically correct in some areas by today's standards, I would guess, in a couple areas. But overall, the idea of arguing for things that, are pretty normal around these parts. And then something happened along the way, and he turned into a friend of Bill O'Reilly's. It was 9/11. And and it was that reaction that those folks had that got us into this kind of rolling Iraq, then Afghanistan, then forever, then staying in there, then the war on terror, and the constant re-upping of the justifications. And many of us, reacted to the authorized use of military force and, being automatically re-upped and not having to declare war and all this stuff, as you should. Recognizing that the war on terror is not a military act, but in large part an act of law enforcement. As John Kerry put it when he was running against Bush in the second term. He's like, this should not have been handled with the military. This was a mass murder. You deal with mass murderers that way. You don't start rolling wars in other countries that are just going to contribute to more war in the future. And I think on our side of the aisle, on the Democratic side of the aisle, in the liberal world, that I resonated to that. I think you did too, Johnny Million. I think a lot of people were like, absolutely, this is ridiculous. We need to get out of there. We're just making more terrorists. And that reflex, that logic is great and should never be lost. But what we have now with the Ukrainian situation, which is a wholly different circumstance, where a foreign country has attacked another in a horrifyingly violent way, for them daring to be independent, and that attachment of that country to the rest of Europe has the potential for a rolling cascade of violence as a large, basically a kleptocracy, a mafia state deciding, we'll just steal one country at a time. And my big stake in the ground as Vladimir Putin will be that I was the guy who started the Russian imperialist move in the 21st century. There is a huge difference in those situations. It is literally the difference between violence and self-defense. If you cannot tell the difference between violence and self-defense, you are useless in any dangerous situation.
Absolutely. Police.
You have no value. Your opinion has no value if you can't distinguish between those two things. You can disagree, absolutely, about which is which. That's an argument. That's a conversation. That's value. It's important to have that conversation.
It happens in court every day. Absolutely.
But if you are incapable of recognizing the difference, then all the Vladimir Putins and the Xi Jinpings of the world have to do is trigger your memory of our own government acting wrongly and saying it's a wash, while human lives are being wiped from the face of the earth while you twiddle your thumbs, because you can't make a distinction between violence and self-defense. Now, the right is doing this like crazy right now. The Gates with his Ukraine fatigue bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene, with her. The funny thing is, she's put forward this I want to audit every dollar that's going to Ukraine. Knock yourself out. Her own congressional committee members, other people in her caucus have just been to Ukraine. They have looked at the books. That's why they were there with the auditor. There is no there. So anytime she floats this kind of thing, that Gates's thing is never going to pass, because the rest of the world is, the rest of the United States, like Senate and the House, has sense. We're not insane, and in general. And so when these things come up, yes, they're disgusting. Yes, they're disappointing. Yes, they're indicative of a callous disregard for human life. However, they aren't going to amount to a hill of beans. And the focus, in many ways, that I think we as a nation have to recognize is that, okay, you have seen a situation where your own fear or your own, just the shock of something like 9/11 was weaponized against you to create actions you do not support. And forever and a day, the rest of your life, you should always be on guard on that kind of thing. But if you knee-jerk that that's always the circumstance, if you automatically assume that, then anyone, including someone in your own government, the next Dick Cheney, because you hinge on a single point, has a very simple way of re-triggering whatever action they want from you again. Complexity has value. Diversity, being our strength, only comes from your ability to critically think in these situations. And as we look at Ukraine, what Browder was saying, and in many ways what I think a lot of what made the West drag their feet in the very beginning, was because for some reason, in an act of self-defense against an onslaught by a much bigger country against a much smaller country, with a country, by the way, with a huge military, deciding we're just going to take this country and, by their own words, eliminate the Ukrainian identity from the earth, either by murder or re-education or both. And by the way, they've decided on a system. The Russians have decided on a system for that, which is kill all the men or anybody old enough to have a memory about this that can fight back, and then absorb all the children. Steal children from the area, raise them in Russian homes to hate their own country, and eventually you will repopulate your diaspora if that's what they're trying to grow. You cannot, you have to have the ability to go, is there a worm on that hook? And because if there isn't a worm on the hook will never get you. The worm has to be something you're attracted to. It's something that is normal for your consumption. And these days, especially as we get into like ChatGPT and deep fakes and all that kind of stuff, I am telling you that the next 2 years in particular are going to be madness in terms of, I saw a video that made me do this, that start tweet storms that change policy in the United States in or any other country, but that was never real in the first place. And by the time you figure it out, it's already done. We have got to be more guarded of our principles and less attached to our jargon.
Well, yeah, and just like there's a New York Times opinion piece saying, we already know that masks didn't work, so what's the next step? It's an opinion piece by some dude who doesn't even think climate change is real.
Right.
But,
well, and for the
but
record,
everybody's freaking out and retweeting it and loving it.
Sure. Well, and that is because the studies that they were using in particular around these things, Well, I mean, it would take an hour to break it down, but they basically took, well, like one of these like accumulative studies that gets put out by a decent, group, but doesn't take into factor any of the other ancillaries of masking. Hand washing, for example, in that same study, hand washing more than anything else decreased the transmission more than any other aspect. Of all the things you can do, hand washing is the best, because even if you're wearing a mask, you touch your eyes. Now, that alone, if people are washing their hands regularly,
he'll touch your eyes.
That's true. I will. Book. We got to take a break, but there was a correlation between people who regularly washed their hands and regularly wore a mask, and slowed the transmission of the virus, saving tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. So even if, and that's not what this paper says, but even if wearing a mask acted as sort of a badge to say, I am also using hand sanitizer and washing my hands, and not, if I feel bad, I'm staying home, that in and of itself would be successful. And it would also correlate to a lot of people who would, it would isolate out the people who don't act that way, who didn't do any of those things, who caught the disease and passed on because they're not counted in said study. They don't exist to the study. So, but again, the idea is how do we use something that's meaningful to you, even if it's brand new? I mean, look at the word liberal to progressive. We have literally gotten to the point where liberal used to be the bad word. Remember that? They were in the 90s, man. Yep. Republicans were making liberal a bad word. Then they were successful. Nobody wanted to call themselves a liberal for a long time. And then boom, part of the reason why we got compassionate conservatism is because nobody wanted to call themselves a liberal because they thought they were going to get dunked on. And they've done the same word with progressive, which they now align with directly communist. The funny thing is, because they've done that, the word liberal is coming back. That even right-wingers, centrist-y right-wingers, whatever the hell that is, call themselves classical liberals now. So, again, it's this attachment to jargon that gets weaponized instead of being able to parse out the difference in the circumstance and going, what are my ethical concerns in this? And how do I live up to my best standards? And I don't think anybody would stand by while someone else is being, murdered right in front of you by someone 3 times their size and go, but if I get involved, I don't know. It's a lot of, it's going to affect my economy. Some people would, not me, and not most of the people in the sound of my voice. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820 AM.
How does he do it?
Yeah, I still don't hear them, but I'm assuming we're at break. I'm going to assume we're
Yeah,
at
probably.
break.
Let me see if Devin sent a text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he sent one saying I was an asshole. That's not cool. I hope we're not on the air. Fuck you, Devin.
Well, at least
I
nobody
really
heard
hope
it.
Can hear us.
Oops. No.
But we're still on the air.
Uh-huh.
Oh, now people miss hearing my typing. I don't believe you, Sylvia.
That is not true. That is 100% not even close to true.
So I am using Streamlabs, Hal.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
and so I can push that out to like YouTube as well, right?
Oh yeah. If you're, I think you have to have the, if you're a member, you got the pro version or whatever it is. It's not that much, but it multi-streams on its own. I use Restream.
I did sign up for a month of the pro to see what it was like.
It's good. It's good because in the themes area of it, there are these plugins that are available from Streamlabs that allow you to do overlays and stuff, and it's way easier than building your own. I build my own sometimes, but like this little bar down here, see this little bar? Like I made that out of my own stuff because I'm nerdy like that, and I need something to keep me from panicking while I'm trying to fix other problems. But there's a lot in there that you'll be fine right on the jump.
Yeah, the menus. I'm so good with any digital audio workstation. I can get around and go like, all right, I need to do this, so I just need to find that out. But the OBS, I have no idea what
it's very
any
weird.
of the menus mean.
It's very curious. Well, I'll walk you through it. We'll do a big get together on it. I like it.
And then half the time, like when I click on something inside the Streamlabs desktop app, it'll take me to the website. I'm like, that's not what I was wanting. I wanted to.
Right.
What am I doing? Where can you see me shred, Tim Farrell? You can see me shred on my Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's Johnny Million on Twitch.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to wait for them to say we're back. I'm going to assume we're back at this point. I'm just going to keep chatting. It's the HAL Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I'm just going to act as if that's what you do. You know what I mean? That's what you do, Johnny Million. It's important.
You got to do that.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Seems like we'd be back by now, right?
I think so. So this week, by the way, just to aggravate myself a little bit as we wind up into this.
We are not back.
We're not back. Oh, all right. Well, then I'm going to save it. How about that?
Save it.
Save it. Anyways, hi chat.
1 minute.
Love you guys. 1 minute. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's them adding a minute so that we can so they can. They're doing what I'm doing. I don't want to be, but
they're still trying to put out the fire to no avail. Yeah, so they were running into something.
That's okay. I understand. I'm good. Hi chat room. We're good. They're good. I have to say,
it's so nice not being the problem.
I need a shirt that says that. It's so nice not being the problem. Oh my God, Johnny Million. Is that not a shirt?
Oh, it's the best. Yeah,
that has to be
not
a
to
shirt.
get too deep into my recovery, but when I'm not the insane alcoholic in the room,
yes.
Mwah,
I am
coming back right now.
Oh, look at that. Good. Because it's about time, because I'm actually making a note of that. Because we're gonna make a shirt out of that for the show, Johnny Million. Well, it'll be available on the Twitch and all those things by the end of day. After I go get my car and then go have coffee with Zach Throne, the bass player for Bruce Kulick's band and who tours with Gene on his own. Awesome dude, really good guy. So last weekend. There was a rage on behalf of Russia's war machine, a.k.a. Rage Against the War Machine, a.k.a. Tulsi Gabbard and Ron Paul and neo-Nazis and Russophiles and QAnons all gathering together in a big lump in D.C. to all complain about the same thing for 20 different reasons, which is hilarious. Diversity was not their strength, I would say, because it was they were like, everybody put the different sums into the equation and came up with the same conclusion, which is, I'm just going to say, a sign of bad math on the jump. There's one in London right now, which is literally its entire its preface is the elimination of NATO, because NATO is a war machine that's been, ginning up war with Russia forever. Now, NATO, has NATO invaded any countries lately? No. Has Russia invaded any countries lately? I'm scratching my head. And by the way, did NATO and Russia have an agreement about sovereign territories in 1997 that Russia immediately broke? Yeah, they did. So I have been dropping into the online social media streams of these folks who are, and I think this is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, which is they are weaponizing empathy of good people, taking what is effectively the anti-war movement and turning it into an anti-Ukrainian self-defense movement. Because their idea is that if we stopped helping the Ukrainians, this would be over a lot quicker. And that's true. In the same way that if someone is being sexually assaulted and you're helping them fight off their attacker and you stop, it would be over a lot quicker. The big question by this anti-war group if I could boil it down into something awful, is if you stop fighting, rape turns into sex.
Oh, jeez, I'm crow.
That's the
Yeah,
mentality.
yeah.
It would just be sex. It's only rape because you're fighting back. That
makes me want to swear.
Oh my God. It is grotesque. And as we look back on the year and all the things that have happened, Bucha, the massacres that happened there, the videos posted, bless you. I know I'm allergic to atrocities as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens. As we look back at like things that seem like impossible, like 1,000 years ago. There's so many things we've been through in the last couple of years, especially.
Wes says we're not on the air.
We're not. That's terrible. Well, maybe there's a delay in the chat. Maybe that's. I think it might be from.
Maybe someone said something was disgusting. I hope that's not my sneeze.
I think it was. I think. But the analogy, I stand by that analogy. That the argument from the door against the machine crowd and this anti-NATO group that's meeting in London right now. Let me say this as clearly as I possibly can. They are not anti-war. They are for Russia winning as soon as possible.
Yep.
They are looking, they're like people who bang on the wall when there is domestic violence in the next apartment, not because they want it to stop, but because it's waking them up from their nap. It is not out of concern for who's being harmed.
They're not banging on the wall because they want justice. They just want it to be over sooner.
Yeah, they just want. Can you just kill her already so I can get some sleep? That's
right.
That's the mentality. And I feel free to at me, anybody who hears this. I don't care. It is abundant. If you listen to any of these people, and it's not even just at these gatherings, it's all year long. It's their conversation about the. It's
the Russell Brand thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's because the Azov battalion had 9 Nazis in it. By the way, back when in 2014, pre-Euromaidan, back when Russia ran the joint through a puppet government, interesting. And then all of a sudden, somebody takes over. They change governments 3 times. They have 3 elections, successful elections. They now have a Jewish president. And all of a sudden, the only place you find those guys holding up their Nazi Ukraine flags happen to be in the Donbas and in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions with brand new, in the package, printed out Nazi Ukraine flags being held up by masked people wearing patches.
What's a Nazi Ukraine flag?
They made a yellow flag with the swastika in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's adorable.
It is. But for the record, is not a symbol of Ukrainians who are Nazis who want this. It is a symbol of the neo-Nazis from Russia who intend to turn Ukraine into a Russian white nationalist state. There is a group specifically of Putin followers who are egregiously white supremacist. And they believe that the reason you have to take over Ukraine, and Putin alluded to this in his speech a few days ago, that not only are the gays going to come in, because that's what Europe wants to do. If Ukraine becomes part of Europe and it becomes normalized to Europe, they're going to have pride marches and trans people, and you're going to have gender-neutral bathrooms, egads. But on top of that, Europe lets the blacks in. Europe lets the Eurasians in. Europe lets the Middle Easterners in and that kind of stuff. And we keep them out. And they're going to, if Ukraine becomes part of Europe, that's what's going to happen. That they're going to allow that in. And that gets on our doorstep. More than fearing NATO's weapons at Russia's doorstep, they fear Western pluralism at their doorstep. And so the people that are in the Donbas holding up flags like that are stating their intention to turn Ukraine into a Russian white nationalist state run by the Russian Orthodox Church and of a particular single strain, to basically rebuild the demographic that is collapsing in Russia. It's very 1930s. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Philip Bittner will be slumming with us right after this
That's right, yeah. Taking a
back
break
on
from
terrestrial radio.
MSNBC.
He's here already. He's lovely. We'll be back right after this. We're going to pick on him because he's wonderful and we're so happy. Anyways, we'll be back right after this. I don't hear Chicago and I'm not going to, so I'm just going to do the thing. Yeah. So, and there we go. And then I've got to get his link and put him in there with us. And guest video, there we go. And pasting him in. And there we go. Hopefully that will work. Hey, there he is. Look at that.
Hey.
Excellent. Hold on one second.
Test. Can you hear me?
You sound spectacular, sir.
Yeah, kind of loud.
Good.
Yeah,
a little loud?
It's okay. He's I can fix that.
Don't you change a thing, Phil?
I don't know if I could or if I wanted to.
It's okay.
I don't. At Chicago, I don't know if you hear me or if I can hear you.
Well, we don't.
They can hear you if they can hear us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
okay. It's going through you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not wearing a hat this time, are you, Phil? I can't see you.
Hold on. You'll see in a second.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
There he is. When I showed my wife the clip of you on MSNBC, and she was like, "So does Phil always wear a hat?" And I said, "No, he's just showing off."
Mr. Fancy Pants.
When I'm outdoors.
Yeah,
when I'm outdoors.
She said,
it was.
"Isn't he outside in Ukraine?" And I was like,
Yes.
Yeah, it's bloody cold.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Cold.
Yeah, it
He's
is.
got his "I'm cool" on MSNBC hat on.
Something on my head.
Something. All right, so hopefully we're solid. There we go. I don't know if you heard it, Phil, right before you came on, but I played the clip from Bill Browder, where he was essentially saying that this like incrementalism, is based on this idea that we don't want to escalate when Putin's doing all the escalating, and it's time for everybody to stop thinking that responsibility is on us, that this is a reaction, not a proactive thing from the West, no matter how the tankies want to paint it as such. And we're paying them too much heed, I think, that, that we're tiptoeing around being called warmongers by the very people who are rooting for Russia right now, which is disgusting. And I won't, it cannot stand this aggression will not stand, man.
Yeah, well, and every day that you don't give them weapons is another day where Ukrainians are getting killed.
Right.
So,
for
us pussyfooting around Putin is, for appearances, us pussyfooting around Putin is having real world effects in that families are losing grandmothers and grandfathers, and, kids are being shoved out of their homes, which are destroyed, and lives are being wrecked. Time to stop. Let's just give them what they need. Give them everything they need.
Yep. Yeah. Phil. Okay. There we go. It's kind of it's amazing like that today. By the way, in London is that anti-NATO thing that they were planning, whatever, and it is. I'm happy to report a pitiful turnout in the same way that the one here was.
Oh, I love when that happens.
And there was the Berlin turnout, which seems significant, but there were only about 10,000 people in a country of how many millions?
Right.
So,
but again, those are also people who've been, they're the closest to this war affects me personally because they're trying to freeze me to death. And I'm also
and there's a history. There's a history that they don't want to repeat, and there's a whole pacifism movement within Germany because they feel it's really important for them not to, not to instigate or be participants in a war on the European continent because of their history. Although I saw there's a very good German commentator who's arrived here, and she made the point that it's like, well, we also have a responsibility to crush fascism because of our history. So Russia's a fascist state.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things, like where Olaf Scholz was like, it's really scary when there are German tanks on the Russian border. That's, it makes us, it brings back memories of, that are bad for everybody. Like, asshole, this is the exact opposite. And I hope we're not back on the air.
We might be. We'll be
this
live
thing's-
at 12:06:15. I'll
Okay,
keep an eye out
good.
on that one.
Lucky me. It's the exact opposite reason, though. You're not doing it to
30 seconds.
Thank you. You're not doing it to destroy Russia, outright and take over their land because you're Nazis, but literally to stop them from doing it. It's
It's crazy. World turned upside down, which is what the Russians want.
Yes.
Yeah. So they can step in.
They want confusion. They want confusion. They want. I don't understand. I don't get it. Let's just stop fighting.
They want to undermine your values. Welcome back to the show,
Right.
by the way.
We're back, baby!
Yeah, we're back. There we go. Thanks.
Can you feel that?
Thanks, Johnny Million. I appreciate it. Yes, we're back with Philip Bittner joining us from Ukraine. We couldn't see it, but I liked it. It's been quite a weekend, I have to say. Philip Bittner, we're normally all your mother on my regular show and on the weekend because I'm genuine.
I know, but my real mother is less than 2 years underground, and that's a little.
I understand.
creepy
Okay,
sometimes.
yeah, I'm sorry. We're your Aunt Betty who thinks you're not eating. How about this? We're that.
I can do it.
I'm down with that.
We're your Aunt Johnny, and so on the regular, and we joke about it in this way specifically because we want to, it's just how we deal with the fact that we're genuinely nervous for you and genuinely nervous for where you are and what's going on there because we do care. And deflecting with comedy is very healthy. And I will say that we also got to be
appreciated.
Yes, we also got to be a
They can't
bit
hear
of
Philip for some reason.
that's their mess around. We'll be fine.
They can't hear me.
No, we can hear you. We're fine.
Okay.
Johnny couldn't for a second, and that's on
No,
him.
Philip can't. I mean, CPT can't.
Can't hear Philip? Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Huh. Why would that be?
Does that mean I'm not going out over CTP?
It does, but I'm not quite sure why. But we'll work on that right now. I will. I'm working on that behind the scenes. But on the live stream in general, Phil. First of all, how you doing? And let us know. And if we have to translate it to everybody else, we'll make it happen. But I'm going to turn off the echo cancellation just in case that's where it's going. And we'll solve it either way. Chicago, if you need to pull audio for the show from YouTube or one of those sites to get everybody, that's another option. Just throwing that out there because I know they're having issues.
I'm going to grab the audio from YouTube.
Yeah. So Phil, like, we were all worried in the lead up that Russia would do something on the anniversary besides just the speech that Putin gave last week. And what was it like? Was there any feel of heightened stuff, or did it come and go?
There was nobody out on the streets. I think I tweeted out the morning of the 24th. I tweeted out how empty the streets were in the center of Kiev. There was a very real concern, a lot of unease, and nothing really happened. Now, we've learned subsequently that Russia did try a couple of kind of minor attacks. By that, I mean 70, apparently some 70 attacks were stopped by Ukrainian forces, both in the air and on the ground, I believe. Yeah. It was very weird. It's not Russia's way of doing things. Right. It's very unusual for them because there's a very kind of frankly blunt, kind of unsophisticated perception of the way power is negotiated in Russia, and that is this: if you don't use it, somebody's going to come and take it from you because you're going to seem weak, and weakness is a sign for that if you are weak, then you deserve to lose what you have. That's the kind of whole mentality when it comes to power negotiations in Russia. Of course, painted with a very broad brush.
Sure.
So for them not to have done anything on that day, on that anniversary, the 1 year, marking the 1 year. I hesitate calling it an anniversary, but the 1 year mark of the beginning of this
We need a new
phase
word.
of this war.
Yeah.
It was very weird, very strange, and I still think there's the possibility that they'll hit us with something. Now, maybe it's because their stockpiles are depleted. Maybe it's because the Ukrainian defenses are so strong that we didn't that they tried and it failed. But I still have this. I'll be happy if I'm wrong. I'll be real happy if I'm wrong. But there's just this creeping sense in my gut that that the Russians are not going to let this anniversary or this 1 year moment in time pass without doing something. So maybe tonight or maybe sometime during the weekend. I don't know for sure. And again, if I'm wrong, great. Or if the Russians fail, also great. But I can't believe that they aren't going to at least try.
I agree. I mean, I think we've seen that when people have tended to misjudge Russia before, where they're like, they're not going to do anything. And this is just like the lead up to the war last year when the Biden administration, everybody was saying, yeah, this is gonna happen. And everybody was like, I don't think so. The opposite is now true. I think that the lesson of that in many ways was that everybody's concerned that like they're going to use whatever that, and that's where like when they blew up their own pipeline, you're welcome. That was, everybody thought, oh, the pipeline was blown up by the West, and therefore this is going to be the thing that's going to set off World War III, and Russia's going to use this. The fall of Kherson, the retaking of Kharkiv, every gain, every like big ticket item, not being able to take Kiev was going to be like, oh, dear God. Well, since they failed at Kiev, they're going to back up and just strafe bomb the place and nuke it out of existence. So everywhere along the way, there's been this idea that Russia's reaction is going to be mass murder. And there's a reason to believe that, but
they're good at it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the one skill they seem to have accumulated over time. But at the same time, I understand everybody's nervousness about it, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be paying off in that regard, either because they can't or because they know that the price of doing it is too high in the case of like tactical nukes or something like that. So it's not wrong to feel that way, obviously. But are we at the point where they're just not even capable of living up to their own myth?
Maybe. There's also the possibility, of course, and this is, again, we can kind of think about all the different scenarios, but maybe also because they sense that there are those out there. And I've seen in the last 48 hours or so, of course, with the rally on the Mall and then London and Berlin and all the rest of it, that maybe there is this growing war weariness. And if they were to attack Ukraine, it would be counterproductive because then everybody who's protesting the war and aiding Russia's interests, willingly, knowingly or not, if they start bombing indiscriminately and doing
it'll
terror
draw
attacks,
attention. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So why not just let those who are, terrified of the war, are tired of the war, are disgusted with the war, and want it to end with no regard to how it ends. Maybe Russia's decided it's best not to give the, let's support Ukraine because isn't Russia awful side, which is the majority, of course.
Because that kind of strategy in a modern society, and in the world of social media connectivity, one of the appearance is a managed part of war even more than I think any other time in history, and so a lot of what they're doing is the grind works on their behalf. Like if because people will tire of it, people will expect it to go on and on like this, and then that what drives the whole, we got to talk about this and just end this, because it seems to be a stalemate, even though real action is happening. And during this back and forth, Russia is sinking back in as far as their availability of arms, their availability of personnel. There are real impacts being made. But if they can make it look like we can do this forever, and that's the perception in a lot of places, that's they throw bodies at things. That's what they've done in the past. We can keep doing this till you're no more. And that plays into that weariness idea. Whereas in reality, I don't think they have the resources or the people to continue doing that. Nobody does. And the Wagner group fighting internally with Russia is a big part of that. We got to take a break. I want to talk a little bit about that on the other side. And then I also want to take some questions from our chat room because I know Johnny's been farming those. And I have.
I got some.
You and I can have our other separate conversation when you join me on Wednesdays when we're talking about these things. But in the interim, it's great to be able to discuss these things, that the chat room is interested in. So we'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. So how do I get...
Did we get the gremlins worked out?
I'm working on that for them. Hold on one second. I'm trying to do a thing where
I'm gonna save it for when we're back on air. But yeah, that whole that whole issue. There's also, and again, I'm gonna hold on this, but there's also the issue that if they start to take ground and they go into Donbas and they go into like the DNR or Luhansk People's Republic, will the perception then switch to, well, now the Ukrainians are the aggressors? Especially in Crimea, if they become right. But anyhow, I'll talk about that on the other side.
Yeah, of course. Let's see.
It's nutty though.
Because if I try to send what I hear of you back to Chicago, yeah, you're good. I hear you just fine. But if I try to send my audio back to Chicago that I'm hearing from you two guys, it'll create a loop.
I mean, this is not how Ali Velsi puts on a show.
Ouch.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. There's Philip Bittner coming in, having a bite of homemade apple pie, and saying, "This tastes nothing like Marie Callender's." You're goddamn right. It's a special recipe.
I haven't seen him in ages.
Yeah, he's
Marie Callender.
Yes, no. That's a regular visit. We all they're all over the place in Ukraine. Marie Callender's ate that place up years ago. It's the one weird. You ever go to a? Is
but
there
the
a one?
The circus is picking up its tent poles and moving on. I know a lot of teams that are going to be leaving tomorrow.
Sure.
So we go back to steady rotations for the International Press Corps. So we shall see.
Well,
I think they did a decent job, the International Press Corps, but they also dropped the ball a lot. It was, I mean, the press conference with Zelensky was embarrassing. The questions were just based on presuppositions.
60 seconds. Still can't hear Philip.
Just ridiculous.
Okay.
Or 40 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry. Probably 30 now.
Right. Okay. Well, hopefully they can't hear him, but they've got it. Can they pull audio?
Yeah, they're doing it from YouTube.
Test.
Cool. We're good then.
Okay.
If you're not.
Thank you, Chicago.
Then we're going to just keep talking as if, and then they'll just pull in wherever they need, and I'll just because it does have stuff in it.
We're back.
Not much I can do from here.
Oh yeah, excellent. I mean, this is what happens anyways, because the conversation continues behind the scenes as you do. Infotainmentwars.com. We don't need the documents. We have everything memorized. Or fwank.com, FWANQ.com. So, Philip, there are a couple of questions that we have already. I do have a personal one that I don't know why it popped up during the break.
I wanted to address before we went to break. There was this one thing of the information war, the propaganda war, and the desire to see the war end. And there might come a time at some point during the fighting season, which is approaching quickly, if the Ukrainians are actually making progress in the breakaway republics in the Donbas. That's the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. If suddenly they're the aggressors, or they're seen to be the aggressors, and certainly Crimea, which is legitimately there is a mix in Crimea. They're not all. There are a lot of full-on Russians, but also pro-Moscovite Russians.
Right.
who are in Crimea. So if the imagery that we start to see is no longer brave Ukrainians defending themselves or making advances to regain ground that they had lost, if instead now they are seen as going in and taking ground that maybe doesn't necessarily want to be part of Kiev, will that also then facilitate this idea that both sides are the same? There is no good or bad. That's why I think Xi's 12-point program,
right?
His
12-step program
is very, very ambiguous when it comes to recognizing territorial integrity, because from Moscow's perspective, all 4 provinces that were under a referendum, quote unquote, are now part of Russia. So does China see that as part of territorial integrity for Russia, or do they recognize that those referendums were conducted under the bayonet and aren't legitimate? So,
well, they have a problem. The blowback around, and by the way, I heard Chicago audio coming our way, and that's why I muted them.
Weird.
So
I did as well,
but,
yes.
but we got it. I muted it on my side, Chicago, but we heard something coming our way. But in the meantime, this is a real problem for China, because if they start arguing that a country can, just, create these referendums, or if the West and the rest of the world fights back against the fabrication of the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics and all that crap, that's a real problem for them with Taiwan going forward. And the U.S. deployed trainers, more of them, to Taiwan this week. So they're going to be there on the regular. We're not going to have a military base in Taiwan anytime soon, but we are going to have a constant presence of military trainers working in Taiwan, which will act as effectively human shields against Chinese, imperialist ideals on Taiwan.
Also the reason why I've run into not a few Taiwanese soldiers here in Ukraine with the Foreign Legion. So.
That's right, because they understand that it's a very similar fight to what they're going through over there. So it's a bigger conversation for a bigger time, and I think you're absolutely right that this is I don't think we see a time where I mean, we may go back to early 2014 where the little green men are there and they're like they dress them in civilian clothes and have them look like they aren't Russian fighters and Wagner mercs fighting against the Ukrainians, but they're dressed in civilian clothes, so they if they do get killed, it looks like the Ukrainians are killing civilians in the area, and that's always a difficult.
And there's also nothing to stop the Russians from just slapping on a blue or a yellow ribbon around a Russian soldier's arm and have them do something terrible, film it, and then say, put it out in the information sphere and say, it looks like those are Ukrainians conducting war crimes. They're very good at this. The Russians are. They're extremely good at manipulation. I mean, there's a reason why one of the very first terms for, in essence, gaslighting a person was called a Potemkin village, and that was back in 60 something. They're very good at manipulating your mind and making you think what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. Don't worry.
Well, and that's going to get even worse. We've been looking at,
and it's going to get worse.
Anybody dives into like Midjourney or ChatGPT and all the stuff that's coming up, you are going to see a flood of phony news websites over the next year, especially, that are auto-populated with artificial garbage based on talking points that are one click and will seem to you to be written by your favorite author. Like at a certain point, you will have to run scans or question, anything you read in that regard. It's going to be a wild west as far as misinfo and disinfo over the next couple of years. And the people who are mocking, yeah, you're right. the people that are mocking that we would have a disinfo bureau in the government, get used to it. Because every government is going to need one at some point. And it won't be stuff we disagree with. It will be manufactured, computer-generated propaganda from other countries, written, again, a worm on a hook. That will be...
there was a time, Vladimir Putin came out with a statement, I want to say about 5 years ago, where he said, whoever is best at AI will be the dominant power on the planet. I mean, Putin said that.
Yes. And by the way, unfortunately for him, it is the U.S. and it will be the U.S. Yeah. The question, though, is that the problem with it is even the second runner-up of AI can do a ton of damage, and that's what we're going to discover.
If your motivation and if the way you implement those AIs is as insidious as what the Russians do, because again, I mean, look, I'm not going to put on my pro-America rose-colored glasses just yet, but we don't do it the same way the Russians do. The Russians weaponize information in a way that's completely different than what the Americans do. America does, uses information warfare in a very, they try to get people on side. They try to, make the enemy look like a very, the worst guy. Russia just wants chaos. Russia wants weaponized chaos. You don't know what truth is. You don't know what, right, wrong, up, down. They want you in a constant state of disconnected reality. It's vicious. I have been a victim of it myself. I've had Russian disinformation campaigns used on me, and it screwed my head up for a really long time. I'm talking years, because like Mike Flynn goes to Russia and he gets told up is down, down is up, black is white. The deep conspiracies and the corporations, and don't you think this is weird? Look at it this way and look at it that way. And doesn't it mean this? And if you're a thinker, you start to go, well, maybe it does. I mean, maybe And it took me a long time to go, no. I know what I'm seeing. I know that an apple is an apple, an orange is an orange. And no, you can't tell me otherwise.
Right, and that takes that's an active aspect of modern life that people are going to have to get used to, active. At least until there is some sort of giant AI failsafe that there's like there are computers that now, like programs or AI programs, that can tell you if something was written by an AI, and then there are AIs that can work around the algorithm that those use to trick that thing into thinking it was written by a real person. It's hilarious, and that's how it's going to be for a while.
It's the age-old battle between defense and offense.
Yep. Let's grab a question.
Taking the advantage.
We got a couple minutes. I want to at least get the question in.
To ask me, Hal? Before we go to
but we'll get to it after. Well, we'll get to it after one of these.
Sure.
Yeah, Johnny.
So from Berkeley Dowd, MSNBC aired a special highlighting Ukraine's resistance network in Kherson and how they interacted with Russian soldiers. How celebrated is the resistance over there?
I mean, I don't want to say very, I don't want to over-exaggerate it, but it is very respected and very much appreciated. Those guys are doing really brave work, because if they're found out, I mean, there's no trial, there's no nothing. That's a bullet in the back of the head. That's it. And we know that Kherson in particular was very active. Kherson's been tricky the entire war, because a lot of manipulation has been going on. But we do know that there were people like messing around with signposts and sneaking into the central railway station and raising up a Ukrainian flag, and calling in or getting messages to Ukrainians or Ukrainian defenses about Russian force strength and things like that. So they've done an amazing job, and they are very much appreciated and respected. The only reason I couch that is because there is this looming other thing, which is kind of a blanket a sign of respect and appreciation, and that's just the entire armed forces of Ukraine. So while these guys are kind of working as partisans, as they're working behind the lines as a kind of a guerrilla group, they are respected. There are tales being told, there are stories, and there's appreciation. But it's generally, people just have this overarching thing of like thank God that there are guys out there who are fighting in our interests, and that's just the ZSU, the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So.
Cool. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We'll have more of the questions from the chat at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/HalSparks and at Facebook and even in the Twitter machine. I don't know what Johnny's just spinning plates over there. We have a lot to talk about. And then I want to talk about I think the biggest under the table conversation is the growing tension between Prigozhin and Putin. I think that is the Trojan horse that exists in this thing more than any other thing. It is extraordinary and bizarre, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Yeah.
And then let me see if... I hear Chicago now.
Hi, this is Patty Vasquez, host of Driving It Home, right here on WCPT.
Hey.
So there's Chicago. I unmuted him for a second. I'm remuting you, Chicago. There you go. Now the ads aren't coming. Okay. Are you guys able to hear Phil yet?
Test 1, 2, 3. Hello.
I can't hear them talking. Maybe they're busy. They're probably throwing wires and doing all kinds of stuff right now. So bless their hearts.
Test.
Yeah. At the very least.
Hey, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Oh my God, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear
I
Chicago?
can't use the talkback feature. I'm actually like cracking the mic to talk to you, and we still can't hear Philip.
Can't hear Philip. That's weird. I don't know why that would be.
Oh, no.
Because Johnny can hear him. I can hear him.
Yep. YouTube can hear him.
YouTube can hear him. Yep. Okay. Let me go back.
Your mom can hear him.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Easy. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I don't know what I can do.
You can't do anything. Don't worry about it.
Nope.
But you were hearing like our commercials just now before I turned them off.
Just now,
right?
yes.
Yep.
So you're still gonna have to grab YouTube audio, I think, to hear him. I don't know what that loop issue is. It's very peculiar.
Let me try one thing before we do that.
It wouldn't be you. I don't think it's you. I think it's some sort of weird software issue with when you guys came in or when he came in. I don't know.
Do you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
I do. I agree. It's very weird. It's the laundromats. Number of outbound connections.
Oh, by the way, did you see what happened to Sarah Ashton Carrillo? Do you know who that is?
No.
A transsexual American fighting for the Ukrainians. She got a shellacking. She got hit really hard. She lost a few fingers. She's got really bad scars. She's headed back to the States. She survived, thank God.
Good.
But rough stuff.
Yeah. Beg your pardon. Yep. I can't find anything wrong with the sound, of the straight to do that. Network video settings there. Individuals, blah 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 blah. Yeah, can't. I don't know. I don't understand.
Was he something cool?
Of course.
Well, I don't know, cool, but got a couple of things. This is a 30 millimeter shell.
30 Mike. Yep.
That Operator Starsky gave me when I was out at Hostomel. This was in a Russian attack helicopter that they shot out of the sky, and you can see it exploded because it cooked off in the fire of the crashed helicopter. So that's a little souvenir I got.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chicago. I heard you there.
Nice. Hopefully maybe it resettles itself.
Of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
welcome back to the show. So, if you're watching or listening on the YouTube channel, Philip Bittner is joining us at Philip Bittner on Twitter. He's in Kiev right now. Was just I want to get into some of the questions that I have. I think that, and we'll grab some more questions. Johnny is farming those for us with the help of our mods in the chat right now. Don't forget to support the show, patreon.com/HalSparks. If you can, if you care, if you won't. Until I get a big millionaire or billionaire whale, in which case, of course, I will they'll take their money right back because I won't change what I'm saying. Anyways, the one thing that stands out to me that I think people are glossing over is this weird fight between Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has been called Putin's chef and who is the head of the Wagner group, who has openly committed war atrocities that they brag about on their Telegram channels. This is not even a question of, the CIA is cooking up and a false flag and blah. These guys brag about the horrors that they create. They're proud of it. And this guy, apparently, the biggest problem, and this came to a head over the last week, that Prigozhin believes that the Russian military is quote, mistreating Wagner forces, igniting intent, and refusing to give them enough artillery and weapons and ammunition.
Air support.
Yes, all that stuff. He accused the MOD of lying about supplying all unconventional units with requested artillery ammunition, claiming instead that Wagner forces received only 20% of the artillery ammunition promised to them. Prigozhin claimed that the MOD's statement, quote, is spitting at the Wagner private military company and an attempt to hide the MOD's crimes against fighters. This is the same week, by the way, Biden gives a speech in Poland, shows support for Kiev, shows it there, and declares that Russia is committing crimes against humanity. The language here can't be an accident. Him bringing up this crimes against fighters argument, which is just a weird thing to phrase in the first place. He goes, who achieved battlefield successes near Bakhmut. Again, this is that salami slice or Pez dispenser version of war that they carry out. Like we get paid for every yard we gain and don't have to refund any of the money when we lose it. It's the perfect money printing situation for Prigozhin and his cretins, especially when he just gets to throw prisoner conscripts at them. So is that a bigger conversation, or are people just going, when your enemy is on the ground kicking himself, in the face, chuffing, why interrupt?
I mean, at this stage, I don't know if it's an issue between Prigozhin and Putin so much as it's an issue between Prigozhin and Gerasimov, the head of the Russian military.
Right.
Because Russia's army is a very weird. It's complicated. And we can go into it in depth,
right.
But it'll take up a whole chunk of time. But let me just shorten it and say there's a weird part of the Russian military in the sense that it is massively dependent on conscripts and just numbers, sheer numbers. But there is also an elite, and there's military academies. There are guys who make it their profession. There's an esprit de corps. And they don't like those guys, the elite, the officer corps. They don't like seeing a guy like Prigozhin rock up and grab all their glory.
Right.
So and also there's a history of this, by the way. In Russian history, especially in times of crisis for the Tsar or the head, the titular head, the guy at the very, very top, Stalin during the Soviet Union, for example, he would pit his boyars, which are basically just the princes, the aristocracy, the kind of the elite. He would pit them against one another. And I think we're seeing that. I don't think Prigozhin and Putin are at each other's throats. I think Prigozhin and Gerasimov are at one another's throats. And it's Putin. Putin is happy to let that happen because he can also then elevate himself above the fray, because there's also another thing in Russian culture where it's like, oh, all of this that's going wrong, it's clearly not the guy at the head. There's a thing called "if the Tsar only knew." We've talked about it in the past.
Yeah, right.
So I think Putin is trying to elevate himself above, and he might even be instigating the infighting because, again, that puts him on a higher plane. So we shall see what happens with Prigozhin. We shall see what happens with Gerasimov. But I've also seen, commentators now starting. There was a video that was just released today of a woman by the name of Ksenia Sobchak, who likes to pretend to be a dissident, but she's not really. But she has fled Russia, and she had a panel between kind of hawks and doves, and they started openly like going at one another about all sorts of things. So we're starting to see cracks in Russia. We're starting to see dissent. It doesn't mean that anybody is openly saying, let's make peace with the Ukrainians, and we've been terrible to the Ukrainians. Moreover, it's basically, do we stay or do we go? And if we go, it's because of those, dastardly NATO guys who seduced Ukraine away from us, and we really lost the war to NATO, not Ukraine.
Right.
Because they'll never accept that. So, but you're right.
Cool.
It's infighting, and
I feel like so there are a bunch of millbloggers that are grinding their teeth about this and have been for a couple of weeks as it worked its way up into the military bloggers for that are pro-Russian, that I'm specifically talking about, that I read and watch what they say, and it's really fascinating to pair that up with what the pro-Russia, or the anti-Ukraine, or the we should just call this off, it's not important, or it's ridiculous, including Seymour Hersh. If you pair this against the internal conversations of millbloggers, Wagner mercs, Russians who are in, soldiers who are there, and the conversations that they're having on Telegram, you can read them. This idea that Ukraine has no chance, and the Russians are going to roll over everybody, and it's just a matter of time, and we're prolonging the inevitable. This weird storyline from last year that literally Seymour Hersh told to Russell Brand this week. He was a guest on his show and literally said, we're just prolonging the inevitable. The Ukrainians have no chance against a force like Russia. It's cartoonish and grotesque. From, by the way, a guy for all practical purposes has the most secretive connections to alleged sources that all just seem to tell him exactly what he already thinks, which is amazing.
And I'll say the same thing that I say over and over again. Get on a plane, fly to Krakow, get on a train, go
just
to the
like
border,
Biden did. Right.
Walk across the border and see the Ukrainian people. All of this kind of, there's the overwhelm. I mean, I saw Peter Zahn, who I think is Zahn or Zehan.
Zion,
the Canadian guy from Stratford. Have I got it around gapping? It's Sam, right?
Zion, Zeihan, Zion. Yeah.
Yeah, Zion. Who is a very good. I'm not going to diss on him. That's not the point. He's excellent in what he does. But so many geopolitical analysts or military analysts,
right?
What they're not seeing is what I see on a daily basis, and it is an unmeasurable thing because human beings are mushy and they're not calculable. It's not quantifiable. It is not qualitative. It is quantitative. These people are motivated. They will fight. Everybody's going to fight if they have to, because it's generations stretching out into time immemorial from this point. Right. If they lose this war, they go back to being subjects of Moscow. That's
the driving. That's the prime mover in this situation. Whereas in many ways, Russia doesn't have one. Its prime mover is this kind of artificial idea of reconstituting something that nobody really wants to reconstitute anyways, because they may want Ukraine, but they don't really want Dagestan, honestly, if they're being truthful. You know what I mean? This idea of putting the whole USSR back together is baloney. If anything, they'd rather have Norway.
They could lose Dagestan. They could lose Chechnya. They could lose a whole bunch of stuff in their soft underbelly in that region. They wouldn't want to, because it gets more and more dangerous when it comes up against Iran, which actually is a whole other kettle of fish. They don't want to lose thing in their Far East because it comes up against China.
Right.
But Ukraine is intrinsic to their sense of identity, their sense of empire, their sense of self. It's really an important thing. I put out a blog on the 23rd that folks who want to see my vlog on YouTube, it's just my name, one Alan Phillip, two T's and Bittner, put out a thing about how like Ukraine is different than any other part of Russia's empire, and it is intrinsic to their sense of empire. So it's going to be all these guys who talk about like, oh, the inevitability, we're just denying the inevitability. Even the guys who are talking about like, oh, if you give them F-16s, those F-16s aren't going to be useful for another year. And they said that with the M777s, the howitzers.
Yes.
And
they
then
said it with
Ukrainians
HIMARS. They said it with,
and the trainers
with
were
ammo.
like, these guys are on an accelerated program of training because they are so motivated to learn every single thing that they can as quickly as they can so they can get these weapon systems online. You can't measure that. That's something that, I mean, I would argue that they would cut the training time for the F-16 by, I don't know how much, but significant percentages. So all of that talk of like, oh, you're just look at the numbers, crunch the numbers, and no, numbers don't work when you're willing to do what these people are willing to do. Well, because they're fighting for everything.
We have to take a break, but one of the things that is kind of an ongoing story in this that we'll talk about on the other side, and we'll take more of the questions that we have in there as well, because I feel like the show is just flying by. There's so much stuff going on. But as an example, Russian millbloggers were pointing out that that Wagner mercs were embedding with, I think, the 51st Russian Brigade in the Donetsk region, I think. Anyways, and that Russians, they were all like gathering together. The Wagner guys were going to be with them, and then they were all going to push towards Bakhmut. And the guys in the 51st started injuring themselves on purpose so as not to go. They started like, it's a lot of foot shooting and people cutting themselves. It was just like this weird, like everybody in the unit suddenly fell down a flight of stairs. Like they were an oligarch on their way to talk to a Western journalist, and so the unit size was cut in half by themselves, and not even because of this friendly fire stuff that was going on. It is insane, and it's not part of the general conversation.
Another non-quantifiable.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It is. You can't. It's an unknown known. How is it affecting the Russian side of things? And it definitely is, because it has to play into why we didn't see a bigger attack. And there's this concern about it being right over the horizon. But that, it's that, again, the unknown knowns. All right, we'll be back right after this. It's the HAL Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, there was a like a big Avdiivka. I can't remember.
Avdiivka?
Yeah. Avdiivka. Yeah. So
there's also a video, and you can talk about that. There's also a video out there that I saw today of a Russian soldier who's injured, but he's captured. And a Ukrainian soldier puts a cap on his head because he didn't have one. And he's like, here, man, it's cold. Keep your head warm. And the kid breaks and you can see him physically breaking down this sense of release and relief of like, okay, my war is over. And not only am I now being like treated like cannon fodder, but I've got this enemy of mine who is treating me like more like a human being than my own officer corps is. Right. And he breaks down in tears, and he's like, They told us you were monsters. Clearly, that's not. Thank you so much. Will you stay with me and talk with me for a while? Please don't leave me.
Oh.
And it's like, I mean, you can't. If that's the situation,
well, it reminds me of
a collapse is a real possibility.
Yes, I agree, and I think it reminds me of that line. We've heard it many times from different places, but I think. It was in the original Captain America. One of the the scientist that creates them says people forget that the first country the Nazis invaded was their own. And
it's 100% true.
Yeah, and there is a certain, like, the Putinites invaded their own country. That's what this is. And they are
There's another video of like children, grade school children, being taught how to be, one's a sniper, one's a pilot, one's a bomber, one's a machine gunner, and they're like 6.
Right.
And you look at it and they're dressed in, military uniform. And you look at it and you just go, there's an illness there. It's
disgusting.
Sad. There's an illness deep in Russia.
There's a video that it goes around of like Chinese school children dismantling, taking apart a Glock and putting it back together at their desk. And there's dozens of them. And it's not. We're back in 10 gross. Seconds. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chicago.
And yet they think that's the answer. They think that solves the problem in front of them, is showing this video or doing that kind of activity.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side in the morning, make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! These are the days. Well, and I think that song has even more meaning on the day of hate. I guess Marjorie Taylor Greene's attempted presidential campaign, where she just decided to have people be outrageously anti-Semitic and awful on the streets of America just to show their fealty to her or whatever is going on, failed miserably again. It's nice to say, here's the thing. Is there awful in the world? Of course. There's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a 20% mental illness and violent monster aspect of every society, give or take, depending on them, no matter how big or small the tribe is. So yeah, they're out there. Are they indicative of the overall mass of humans? Absolutely not. And it's really quite reassuring, to me anyways, that in countries with millions of people in them, that the people who are defending the actions of Vladimir Putin or anti-Semitism and all this stuff are pitifully small. And the real story I would like to remind everybody, and this is similar to stuff that happened a couple of years ago. Remember, there was a guy who was drawing swastikas inside with a Sharpie inside New York trains. He was just drawing them all over the place, and people were getting up and wiping them off.
Yeah.
One guy with a Sharpie does not get to define the entire society. What defines the society is the volume of people.
And take it from a guy who spent the better part of the last 20 years going war to war. I've been in over a dozen wars. Hopefully this is my last one. I have seen human beings do awful things to one another. I have also, in those same conditions, seen people do extraordinary things in aid and assistance.
It seems like wherever you go, Phil, there's a war.
So I've seen the worst of us, and I've seen the best of us.
Yeah, so leave him alone.
Causality, is not the. Yeah,
he is not the. By the way, he is not the murder she wrote. Jessica Fletcher is not the greatest mass murderer in the history of television. It doesn't work that way, Johnny.
I think she might be.
Yeah. So no.
Well, I'm just waiting for the other 3 horsemen to show up, and then off we go. So.
Right. And yet they don't come. Yeah. I see. There you go. So let's grab a couple more questions at the tail end of the show, just because we can. And what do we have there, Johnny?
Yeah, this is from Greg Edmond. Have you met Adrienne Arsenault of the CBC? She's in Ukraine now.
What's that name again?
Adrienne Arsenault.
Nope, haven't met her. I know Sarah Rainsford with the BBC. I know Stephen Rosenberg with the BBC, who is extraordinarily good. And
CBC,
Canadian. The CBC. I may have done. Yes, I may have ran into her recently. I would have to take a picture. I'd have to take a look at a picture of her. But yes, I've run into CBC crews, so I would bet you yes, I have. And she's
Google her,
very
but delete your browser history.
I used to work for the CBC occasionally when I was freelance, and it's a great organization. They let us do a thing called a rant, where we just excise everything from your brain, and they would then edit it and put it together. Wonderful organization, the CBC. Good news.
Wonderful. Got another question from Eric R. Piekarski asking for the guys, what's the thinking on reports that Russia's latest military jet is supposedly to be stationed? I don't know. I might have not gotten the rest of that question. Do you know what he means?
I think I do. Yeah. I mean, their fifth generation fighter is an extraordinary fighter. They have really good aviation and air power is, and they haven't brought it really to bear. That could change in this year. That is an advantage they have not taken yet, because Ukraine's air defense systems are so good. So we'll have to see. I don't know what he's referring to when it comes to moving them to airfields. He might be referring to Belarus. We've had talks about that. But again, Lukashenko is that the issue has not changed with Lukashenko. Lukashenko cannot give full support to Putin. He cannot use his own armed forces in any kind of offensive because he has to keep them internally within Belarus. Otherwise, his own people will depose him, and he will go the way of Gaddafi. So that hasn't changed. But yeah, the Russians might put planes in Belarus, and they might bring out their best planes in this year. I don't know. Another reason to give them a 16th.
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. Grab another.
All right, I've got another question from Jovan Hutton. Pull my finger. Could you ask Phil if Ali Velshi is as nice a guy off camera as on camera?
He's a lovely guy.
He is.
He's a lovely guy, and he's articulate and intelligent, and he unlike a lot of people in the international press corps, he's done his hard work when it comes to Ukraine, and he has a better understanding than most. Not as much as me, but he's been nice enough to let me impart some of my knowledge to him. So he's open and receptive to that. And no, he's a lovely guy, and I'm proud to call him a friend.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yep.
Ed's 3D Tech, can you ask Philip about GMLRs?
GMLRs. That's the rocket system, I believe.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
that he's referring to.
Yep. Yeah, the long range rocket.
Variation. Yeah. Yeah, it's the one that shoots up, and then basically a drone comes out of the shell. Yeah, and then they're controllable and stuff. I mean, yeah, and it's longer range. It would be great. Yes, please. I mean, I made the point on Ali's show last night, and it still stands. We need to stop the incrementalism. Give them everything they need. Give it now. Let's finish this war with a victory on the ground. We'll have negotiations. We will sit down around the table, but we have to finish the war. Otherwise, Russia will just keep coming. We have to stop the incrementalism. The drip, drip, drip has got to stop. Give them everything that they ask for, short of nukes. And with limitations, if we're worried about them striking deep into Russia and some, making the Russians go nuts, we can work with them on that. But the most important thing is they need everything that we can possibly give to them, because there are hundreds of thousands of Russian conscripts, sadly. And Ukraine will only be able to combat that with better firepower.
And let's squeeze in one more quickie. Can you ask Phil if he can make a video about the farmers market that you always go to?
Sure, I will.
Yes. See, that was easy.
Bessarabsky Market is what it's called. It's named after the Bessarabsky Pass that the Russians are worried about, because it's a way into their flatland and onward into Russia. It's a lovely place. I'll go get some pickles. I'll go get some caviar, and I'll film it.
And by the way, I've eaten some of the pickles from that area because Philip was nice enough to bring me a jar all that way. And the garlic stems, the pickled garlic stems. I'm just saying. Just amazing. Anyways, thanks so much, Philip Bittner. Thank you, Chicago. Thank you, Johnny Million. Love you guys. Be safe. Take care.
And we will. Thanks, everyone.
Philip, I will see you on the Wednesday stream if you'll be able to join me. And we will.
I'll be there.
Yep, we'll keep filling people in on
Good to see you, Johnny.
details. Yep, on the details as they come. Thanks so much. See you next week.
All right, guys. Slava Ukraini.
Yeah, Slava Ukraini. All right, cheers, brother. Thank you. Up he goes, and hold on, I'll get Johnny Million and me back in there with his cat. Bink. Don't forget to hit that rap. There you go.
666.
Da-da-da-da. So
all right, have a good one, guys. Hopefully we'll get this straightened out next week.
Yeah, fear not. And I will I'm gonna find an alternate way of looping audio to you guys without you guys in it, maybe even using clean feed, so that it doesn't, in case we run into this problem again. So you can have another choice, because I don't think it'll take a lot of weight on my system if I can, because I think I have another mix minus I can send your way. I'll work on it, but hopefully we should be fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no worries. I honestly don't know why that happens. I don't know. Like, there's no reason, because this website we use is supposedly, you can have 20 people and they can all talk to each other, and you can hear Philip and I can hear Philip and you can hear me and I can hear you and da-da-da. But then there was something wonky. Maybe it was mono to stereo and it splits it, because that's how it goes. Maybe that's how they did it.
Look what I got.
Oh, it's a kitty. Oh, Flora.
How's
Lovely.
Chud doing?
She's good. She's upstairs laying down. She was very noisy and wanted to be fed this morning. She's like, meow. She barks at me, which is a good sign. And you know how like old cats don't really do the head shake thing. They just blow it off at a certain point. She's back to doing that.
Oh, good.
When something, when she's got, whatever, water on her or something like that, she'll shake it off, that's a really good sign. Like, she's doing better. So I'm giving her, she's on a kidney diet. She's got kidney food, pro-kidney food.
All she's eating is kidneys.
That's right. We just feed her the kidneys
of
dry
kidneys.
Yes, of fresh lambs that I have to slaughter in the backyard, but anything to keep my cat alive. And and then she's still got her wrists shaved.
Yeah, that looks so cute.
Which is hilarious. And then she had another one on her back leg we didn't see till later. She has a big patch there that they had shaved to run another line in her. Poor thing. So that just makes me hurt for her. But she's like, cat food now that's, easy on your kidneys as an old cat. And then I put her glucosamine drops on top of that, and then she eats it. And she's been eating, like she always eats, but she was noisy because her nose doesn't work. So she's like, and she's now eating everything in her bowl. And it used to be that Chip would eat everything in his bowl, and then Chud wouldn't finish hers, and he would kind of muscle his way over and eat her food. She's now doing that to him. And he's like, hey, what is Yeah, so it's a good sign. I think rehydrating her helped. We also now have, Summer got her an oxygen tent, like a little thing with we have to get oxygen for it, obviously, but it's this little thing you put them in. It's like a little cat carrier, but it's plastic with little vents on the side of it, and you just pump a little extra oxygen into it so it can help them, whatever. And I'm like, my cat is Michael Jackson. At some point, my cat is now Michael Jackson.
You've got to warn her to not smoke in there.
That's right, because kaboom. Right. Yeah, which is weird because she's an old cat. I swear to God, if I came down the stairs and Chud was on the couch smoking, I wouldn't even think it was a dream. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely, because she's a sweet cat, but she has that like half-lidded, like she's got python eyes and half-lidded all the time. So as sweet as she is, she's like, all right, when do I have to start killing you people? This is getting, you're tiresome. All right, I'll purr a little bit, but this one last time. Thanks for the food.
I'm getting some purrs here.
Yeah, that's good. How's she doing? How's Flora doing?
She's doing all right. She's still got an appetite, but she's not gaining weight. I can feel her ribs. So we figured that she's riddled with cancer, and we'll just keep putting wet food in her until it won't fit anymore.
Right. And then, and then it's old Yeller time.
That's right.
Right. But
and I'm real excited about it. I keep like shooting at her, like
today the day. Right.
Yeah.
She always dodges though.
Keep her on her toes.
Right.
Start firing off rifle shots at her. I take her out to the woods. I'm like, what about today?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's. I mean, hey, relax, everybody in the chat room. This is how we deal with the fact that we're gonna have to say goodbye at some point.
Yeah,
they're okay.
Well, she's 16. She's doing pretty good.
Yeah, she's beautiful and she's yours. Anyways, love you, brother, and let's set up a time. I've got the jam this week. I'm doing the Sammy Hagar jam on Tuesday, so I'm singing Right Now, Dreams, Best of Both Worlds, and Good Rockin' Tonight from Montrose.
Jesus
Christ. Pretty pedestrian vocals. But I did discover last night. Well, okay, so I went to see Steel Panther, little after show story.
Yeah.
Went and saw Steel Panther because I'm friends with those guys, but I'm really good friends with the drummer. The guy who plays Sticks It In Ya, Darren. He's a lovely dude. He's just
that's his name. Sticks It In Ya.
Zadinia, yeah, Zadinia. Yeah, he's
oh my god,
he's Greek. Anyways, he's just a lovely guy. I like he and I were instant friends when we met years ago. He's one of those guys where like there's he's one of those friendships that they like yours and mine, Johnny, that they say do not exist. Like just men going, I don't know, I'm fine. I don't have emotions, I'm fine. Like know, like those are the ones everybody thinks men have, when in reality we're like, I love you, man, and it's good and it's a good thing. And I'm
the only friendships now that I have now are bromances.
Yeah, exactly. They're totally good.
There's no tough guy friendships anymore.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I've got some tough guy friendships, but mostly with relatives.
Oh yeah,
I had tough guy relatives, yeah, which is good because your family, it's automatic that they love you, so they can kick your ass without any misunderstanding. It's good.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he was there last night, and we chit chatted and whatnot, just had a great old time. But there was a guy there who was waiting while we're waiting for the after show to hang out with everybody because they corral you. It's like, whenever there's an after show party or something like that, whoever the staff is in charge of that, it's their moment to make all the friends of the band feel like cattle for just one moment, that kind of thing. So they gather, yell together, and wait out here. Don't move. Everybody step to the side. If you're waiting to go back, that kind of, it's funny. They were fine. Everybody was lovely. But this guy who's there, who's friends, I think, of Michael Starrs, of Ralph's, the lead singer. He's in a Judas Priest cover band, this dude.
Oh, neat.
He did like rock and roll fantasy camp with Judas Priest and sang with Rob and whatever. And he's in he dresses up and he had the outfits.
They've got the common guitar player. The guitar player was in Fight.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's a lot of family in that. Yeah. The guitar player, for those of you who don't know, in Steel Panther, he and the lead singer used to be in Atomic Punks. They started the biggest Van Halen cover band that exists. They were the originals in that. So he, Ralph played David and he played Eddie, and Russ, who's Satchel in it, is just a super talented guy. I mean, it's just dumb how good of a guitar player that guy is. Just totally
ridiculous. Yeah,
he can play anything just like the other person. Well, it's like Zach's guitar player in his band, who he calls the evil twin, because the guy can just double him on everything. It's amazing. Yeah. So, anyways, they're there to see Russ, and it's really cool. And the guy goes, I got to sing, with him, and he goes, and I'm standing right next to Halford, and we're singing together, and he goes, I could hear him singing over the monitors. He was so loud, like his voice is still so powerful at this age, and he's an old dude. Yeah, and of course, queer as a football bat, and and we love Rob Halford just like we love Freddie Mercury, and that's why I say heavy metal loves everybody.
Absolutely, there are no real gatekeepers in heavy metal.
That's right. And so, anyways, one of the things, if you'll see, is that Rob Halford now, because he's older and he can't kind of just run and jump around, too much restroom sex, I think it's just worked. It's his pelvic tilts off. So, anyways, and he wears giant boots. He wears giant boots like Kiss does, but just whatever. His outfit, his jacket weighs like 80 pounds. It's hilarious.
It looks so heavy.
It's amazing. But he walks around and he puts his hands like this, like he's doing martial arts. And the microphone is right here, and he holds the mic this close to his face. So it's always the same distance. And so his vocal control is just amazing. And so he
awesome.
He'll very occasionally he'll move the mic back like that, but most of the time it's just literally like he's in a music studio recording, in studio where you would want to keep it consistent and let the engineer, or the compressor ride it. So, anyways, amazing vocal quality. Rob Halford, like his technique, and just and overall, for me as a metal fan, a proud moment for us, because while the band may have had an issue with him being gay, the fans absolutely did not. And
they never did. That was a misnomer from that Rockstar movie.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. Because they created the myth that was what it was about in Rockstar, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But Rob, even in his book, said the guys never cared.
Nice. Well, and they had to have known. I mean, come on.
He said they knew early on.
Of course.
And he frequently would bring his boyfriends on tour and stuff.
Yeah. So who cares? And by the way, great. Like I said, a great talent. And apparently, Rob Halford, the guy asked him what's his secret to his voice and keeping it, and he goes, he chews a certain kind of gum you can only get in England. And he always has it, and apparently and Meatloaf apparently did it as well. But you could see it. You could see it in Meatloaf's mouth when he would sing. He was always chewing it because it would show up because he opened his mouth really wide. But Rob doesn't, so he's you never see that it's in there. But it's this eucalyptus menthol chewing gum, which sounds exactly like something awful the Brits would come up with. And he chews it constantly, and he drinks honey and lemon tea, on the side of the stage, during solos or whatever. He'll go and take a sip.
Yeah, he's been sober for 36 years or something.
Yeah, and so those two things. Apparently, he's always got that gum in his mouth when he's performing, which is something I've learned last night. And
That's
so
fantastic.
Before I even left the venue, on my way out, I'm on Amazon going Airwaves menthol gum.
You mean this gum?
Yeah, that's it. It's the Airwaves.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's really hard though. Be careful.
Well, no, I have extra hard chewing gum that I actually chew for my jaw, because it shapes your face better. It's like exercise for your facial muscles.
It is not for vanity, not you.
It is. It is absolutely for vanity.
No,
and also,
I refuse to believe it.
It also stops TMJ, because your TMJ is often caused partially by anxiety and other stuff, but it's also when your muscles get slack in your face, they will often try to compensate, or they'll overreact at night. So because you have less control.
TMJ is Taka Mocha Jalopy.
Yes, that's right. It happens to everybody eventually.
And too many tacos, too much mocha, driving jalopy.
That's right. It's a suppository. So I'm just gonna keep doing hair flips all day because it feels good. Anyway, so I absolutely went and did Hal finish the story about Steel Panther last night? Yes. Well, that was the story. That was the offshoot side story.
The gum.
It was the gum. Yes, that I ended up. Awesome. And I ordered some. It'll be here tomorrow, and I'm going to try it Tuesday for the Sammy Hagar thing.
They're going to love it. It really clears out the old nasal passages.
Well, see, here's why I think I've been doing it when my voice is really strong accidentally through a combination of things. On the one hand, obviously, like the Fisherman's Friend or any of those mentholated cough drops will help clear out the mucus. And then I actually have even though I don't have acid reflux, I have a Tums before the show because the force of singing will often push your stomach acid up into your esophagus.
Yeah, it will.
It's really unnatural, is bringing the air in and pushing it out, and especially if it's long, heavy notes or the big David Lee Roth horn notes that he does. So when I do those, there's a tendency that over time, over the course of an hour and a half, a little bit of stomach acid because of the pressure could work its way up into your esophagus and eventually harm your vocal cords. And it makes, even if you have time to recover between, because it's minor and it's not ongoing, it still damages you over the course of the show. So by the end of the show, part of the vocal fatigue is that. So what are you typing letters for? It's hilarious, but whatever. But yeah, so you can cause like physically triggered acid reflux when you sing for a long period of time. And a lot of times that's what, people will do. Mint tea, that's the equivalent. If you drink mint tea, it will it'll push that back down. Or the lemon, your body produces less acid when you have more acid in you. So if you eat pineapple or you bite lemons, your body will compensate by, there's plenty of acid, and it will not raise the level of acid in your system. So that's part of why it helps. So anyways, have you been talking to my vocal therapist? Yes, it is, Hal. There you go. See? So I think I've been doing it through 3 different things with, tea and cough drops and Tums before the show that has helped me get into a better pocket, vocally, where I'm able to pull this stuff off. And it would be nice if it was just easier, one stop. And so between that gum, I think, and the Entertainer's Secret, I'm starting to hit my stride.
When you do this and say Entertainer's Secret, you mean Red Rum? You mean Mrs.
There's
Torrance?
a button. I don't know if you know this, but there's a button. I can't show you on camera.
Oh,
but
no, you can't. Yeah.
I'll send you a photo later. There's a button on your own anatomy that if you push it just right, high notes are a breeze.
Oh, my Entertainer's Secret has prolapse.
That's right. Oh, no, you have a prolapsed Entertainer's Secret. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody can see it. The internet is forever. So the MJ button. That's right. You push it and you can. If you push it and you leave it that way, you talk that way forever. Yeah. So, anyways, love you, brother. I just thought I'd tell you that side story. And that's it. Oh, and Darren is going to. They're on tour for 7 weeks, and then when they get done, he's in LA. So I'm gonna have him come and drum on a song at the Jam, which I'm also eventually gonna figure out a way to get you.
Sweet.
It's either Kiss or Queen song. We'll start there. Maybe some Cheap Trick. There's a lot there. I'm just saying.
There is.
Oh yeah. So anyways, love you guys. Love the chat. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for the by the way, Shadow Woman and Ninka Crinkles and Stargal, thank you for the gifted subs today, helping us get our numbers back up at Twitch. That really helps. If you're a Twitch follower, think about subscribing, and you have to re-up it. If you haven't done it in a while, do it anew, because it's not automatic like the memberships on YouTube or those kind of things. So you have to, which is good because Twitch is full. Yeah, Twitch is full of teenagers and who are doing most of this shit with their parents' credit card. So it's better that you have to actively do it. And I also think we have to earn it. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, much love. I will see you later. Take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.